It goes further than that. It's an ideological motive in spite of what should be a profit motive. It wouldn't be excusable if it was profit-driven, but it's not. It hurts their business, and they will do it anyway to get rid of the voices they don't like because there is a message and an agenda that is more important to Jack Dorsey than even the bottom line. So Jack Dorsey, and you guys can comment on this. Why do you think Jack Dorsey is stepping down? We don't have all of the details now.
Yeah, it's just breaking right now.
This is breaking right now from CNBC. Jack Dorsey is expected to step down as CEO.
Yeah.
Now, it's not known exactly why, but keep in mind, stakeholders, they did try and force him out last year
yep.
over incredibly slow growth. And keep in mind, he was also, I don't know if he was CEO before, but then left and then was back. They've still been trying to force him out. This morning, I think they've stopped trading. Is that what's been going on?
Yeah, they halted trading on the stock after. This is funny. So they're like, we're kicking Jack Dorsey out. Oh, thank God. Stock jumped up 10%.
Jumped 11%.
Yeah, 11%.
What? Like, I better buy in.
That's not like when they're like, Steve Jobs might not be around forever. And you just watch it go down like Ed Rooney's computer. Like, we might get rid of Jack Dorsey. And everyone's like, oh, happy day. Yeah, the stock goes up.
Well, he's the CEO of Square, the payment processing company. Their stock is tanking now because he'll be able to focus full time on them.
Oh, yes.
And because
I'm just saying, anything he touches, he's like Charlie Brown. Oh, anything I touch turns to ruins. He hasn't done well for anything. And this is something that I've talked about in the past. People often say it's a profit motive. Now, you can say that with right now, and it's very dangerous that our film industry is catering to China, right? Whereas the Chinese government is creating anti-American propaganda videos. And with these people right now who work with social media, what's really dangerous is they are catering to international interests, and they're not actually taking into account the country that allowed them to become Twitter in the first place, or Facebook and Google. And so it's a real problem where these platforms aren't actually able to fulfill the purpose they were designed to fill.
Yeah.
So it genuinely is a problem right now, and Jack Dorsey has done incredibly poorly. We don't know exactly what it is, but let me give you kind of a few of the quick hits of Jack Dorsey. Remember this? He was grilled by Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Twitter decided to, and their stock didn't do very well when this happened. This is one of the values of seeing a publicly traded company. They banned the Hunter Biden laptop story. We know now statistically there were polls where Americans said if they knew about that story, it would have changed their vote. Yeah. Enough Americans would have changed their vote, even assuming safest, most secure election in American history.
Yes.
It still would have swung the election for Donald Trump had Facebook, Twitter, Google not decided to ban the Hunter Biden laptop story. Here's Jack Dorsey being grilled by Senator Ted Cruz.
Let me ask you, was Twitter being a publisher when it censored the New York Post?
No, we have very clear policies on the conduct we enable on the platform. And if there's a violation, we take an enforcement action, and people choose to commit to those policies and to those terms of service.
Except your policies are applied in a partisan and selective manner. You claim it was hacked materials, and yet you didn't block the distribution of the New York Times story that alleged to talk about President Trump's tax returns, even though a federal statute makes it a crime to distribute someone's tax returns without their consent. You didn't block any of that discussion, did you?
Whoops.
Nazi flag. Our policy was focused on distribution of the actual hacked materials.
Oh, so a non-answer.
The definition of is.
Someone give that man some more ayahuasca. He needs clarity.
He does. Yeah.
He looks like a serial killer in Alaska.
Yes. And going on in the same vein, when Tim Pool raised the issue of free speech, Dorsey yet again. And this is pivotal. Why? Because the whole idea of it was a digital town square. That's how Twitter was actually pitched.
Yeah.
Digital town square, right? Square, the idea is also designed to sort of tie into that, to check in to places physically. Originally, Square was designed to be sort of symbiotic with Twitter and like, look, I just checked in at whatever, Mario's Pizza. Oh, okay, I'll go there. Till they found out that, it just led to record amounts of rape.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Rape, murder, doxing. They're like, maybe we shouldn't do this so much. So
own it down.
The purpose of it was supposed to be, bypass mainstream media, bypass the gatekeepers. That's why Twitter developed. Speak directly with your fans. That's the value that Twitter would bring. That's the currency. So when you look at the series of answers from Jack Dorsey, where he's unable to articulate unable to articulate his point of view on the sole value, the currency that Twitter provides, that's when you see the stock take a nosedive, not to mention the inconsistency. So Tim Pool brought up the idea of free speech. Here's Jack Dorsey articulating his thoughts in a crystal clear manner.
In terms of what we're trying to drive is opportunity for every single person to be able to speak freely on the platform. And
that's absolutely not true. You don't allow hate speech, so free speech is not on your platform.
I said
speak freely.
Enable everyone, create the opportunity for everyone to speak on our service.
Unless it's hate speech, right?
And in part of that, the recognition that we're taking action on is that when some people encounter particular conduct, that we see them wanting to remove themselves from the platform completely, which goes against that principle of enabling everyone to speak or giving people the opportunity to speak. So rules are focused on the opportunities presented, and we have particular outcomes to make sure that those opportunities are as large as possible.
Okay, so this is a problem that you see, and I'm going to go next to the inconsistency about not banning global leaders. Do you see what he just said there? Do you see there was a very clear question by Tim Pool. And I do want to hear from you guys if you see how perverse this is. And you see this a lot. Anyone who has, if you're married, you see this a lot where sometimes, let's say you're having an argument, and then all of a sudden it becomes about your reaction to something that was said that was maybe out of line or hurtful, right? And then you react and you get mad, and it becomes, you've reacted this way. In this case, he says, we support free speech. Okay. But then some people on the platform are saying, hey, I don't like what that guy said. I'm offended. And so they develop their policy now, not around the idea of free speech, but the reaction to speech that offends people. That is not free speech. Free speech has to completely ignore, not even take into the equation, the reaction of someone, regardless of the speech, barring crime. Someone's going to come through, what if I yell fire in a crowded theater? Shut up, I took Humanities 101 too. What we're talking about is actual speech, regardless of how offensive. The issue is Facebook, Twitter, Google, YouTube, but Twitter's been the worst. They react and they create algorithms that favor the reaction to offensive speech. And they claim that they do so under the guise of free speech. Am I articulating that? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's basically the lowest common denominator, though. He said we want to have the largest possible kind of group of people talking, and so we've got to remove essentially those people who say something that's offensive. And I'm like, well, you're polling the audience, Jack. Do you understand that will never stop? There will never not be a grievance against a certain person or group, and you will actually limit the audience by doing that?
And it's also not genuine, because do you know what offends me?
To one side.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is he favors one side. It's blatantly obvious.
Right. Well, you know what? Conservatives, right-wingers, don't tend to be offended, even you who's a moderate, but you believe in free speech and comedy.
Yeah.
My reaction is not to typically be offended outside of the vaccine sketch from Stephen Colbert. That was offensively funny.
But I just don't see how that's comedy.
Yeah, well, and that's offensive. It offends the sensibilities.
Yes.
But I will say this, it's not even just
propaganda in its worst form.
But do you know what's offensive to a lot of people? I don't know, to doctors, biologists, saying, hey, biological women are the exact same as men. When the International Olympic Committee now says you don't even need to change your hormones at all to compete with the women, we're just going to punt it to the individual sports, which they don't do with steroids. When they say, hey, we need to sign legislation that allows children to be put on puberty blockers. Now, people react not saying I'm offended, but hey, this is wrong, and those people get banned. Those people get throttled. Those people get removed. The Hunter Biden story, which would alter the face of an election, gets removed. And one thing I want to make very clear here, this is also a problem where we don't live in an entirely capitalistic society. It's not just a profit motive. You see with the stock, you see with the performance of Twitter, he is acting this way. He is behaving as an activist in spite of the business's best interests. You see that with Hollywood. You see it with Hollywood right now continually pushing an agenda, and now you see pieces of entertainment underperforming. Remember when George W. Bush was president? They had a series of redacted, rendition, Lions for Lambs. None of them performed well. It's not even a profit motive, which wouldn't make the destruction of our basic rights, namely First Amendment right to freedom of speech, which does apply in a digital town square if you have the benefit of the safe harbor laws.
Yeah.
It goes further than that. It's an ideological motive in spite of what should be a profit motive. It wouldn't be excusable if it was profit driven, but it's not. It hurts their business, and they will do it anyway to get rid of the voices they don't like, because there is a message and an agenda that is more important to Jack Dorsey than even the bottom line. And he's failed at both.
Absolutely. And that Ted Cruz moment there was where I was just like, all right, guys, it's put up or shut up time. This is the most clear thing. That was within, 2 weeks of when Donald Trump's stuff had been leaked and Twitter did nothing about it. New York Times Post that he was talking about. New York Post comes out with a Hunter laptop story. It goes absolutely viral, on fire. They take it down, come back later and say, oh, we were wrong to take it down. But they wouldn't put it back up.
Right.
They would not reinstate the tweet because at the time, this is their logic, at the time we weren't wrong.
Also on Joe Rogan's podcast in 2019, Dorsey claimed that Twitter does not ban global leaders. Here you go.
Powerful figures or public figures might be in violation of our terms of service, but the tweet itself is of public interest.
Yes.
There should be a conversation around it. And that is probably the thing that people disagree with the most, and where we have a lot of internal debate. But we also have some pretty hard lines. If we had a global leader, including the President of the United States, make a violent threat against a private individual, we would take action. We always have to balance that with, is this something that the public has interest in? And I believe generally the answer is yes. It's not going to be in every case, but generally the answer is yes, because we should see how our leaders think and how they act.
By the way, Erdogan is still on Twitter. I believe the leaders of Hamas are as well. And then he banned Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, a year later, even though Donald Trump tweeted a video requesting the January 6th protesters to be peaceful.
Yep.
Just to be clear. He was speaking live, said make your voice patriotically, peacefully heard, and then released a video where it was reiterating being peaceful. This is something just like when people say he claimed to refine people on both sides, referring to Nazis. No. Nope. Watch that clip where he said, I'm not referring to the neo-Nazis who should be condemned totally, okay? Not them, horrible people, condemned. I'm saying you had both people on both sides of the statue issue who were very fine people. They misrepresented it, and they used it to ban. They lied. To use, I was being a little...
Lied. No. Lied.
To remove the President of the United States. And guess what? The stock value of Twitter took a $5 billion nosedive after they banned Donald Trump.
Stunning, though. I mean, how do you get past all his charisma?
So
that
much
silver-tongued devil.
Yeah, he's just... Gosh. It's hard to not agree with when he's just staring down like a complete and utter autistic.
With birds in his beard and nipple barbells in the middle of his tongue.
Just
no, not me.
So earlier today it was announced that he was expected to resign. He posted, I resigned from Twitter, and his successor is a guy named Parag Agarwal.
Oh,
so
cool.
we found a good tweet from him. If they're not going to make a distinction between Muslims and extremists, then why should I distinguish between white people and racists?
Good
you
one.
new leader of Twitter. How about that?
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.